The wind outside roared like a living beast, rattling the wooden walls of the isolated cabin in the mountains. Snowflakes swirled through the shattered window, where the faint glow of a dying fire illuminated the frost-covered floor. Clara knelt behind the heavy wooden table, her rifle steady but hands trembling. Her breath came in slow, measured exhales. Her heart beat a war drum in her chest. Rex, her German shepherd, stood beside her. Ears perked, muscles coiled like a spring, his low growl barely audible beneath the howling wind. They had found her. Two men stood at the open doorway, their long black coats dusted with snow, their faces shrouded in shadows. The taller one took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against the icy floorboards. The other, shorter but stockier, stayed back, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. "Clara," the tall one called out, "you can't run forever." His voice was smooth, practiced. It was the same voice that had haunted her for months, the voice of Agent Kessler, the man sent to silence her. Clara tightened her grip on the rifle, her finger brushing the trigger. "You burned my home," she said, her voice steady but cold. "You hunted me like an animal, and now you expect me to just hand it over?" Kessler let out a slow sigh, as if disappointed. "You don't understand the weight of what you're carrying." Her jaw clenched. Oh, but she did. Weeks ago, she had uncovered something she was never meant to see. A classified file buried deep within the government's encrypted archives. It detailed a conspiracy spanning decades, a secret war waged in the shadows, where people like Kessler were sent to eliminate threats. And now she was the threat. Kessler tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "I don't want to kill you, Clara. Just give me the file and we can both walk away from this." Rex let out a sharp bark, his body shifting forward in anticipation. Clara narrowed her eyes. "You're lying." The stocky man at the doorway chuckled darkly. "Smart girl," Kessler sighed. "Fine, have it your way." He nodded once. Gunfire erupted. Clara dove behind the table, splinters flying as bullets tore through the wood. Rex lunged forward just as the stocky man pulled his weapon. The room exploded into chaos, snarling, shouting, the deafening roar of gunfire. Rex's jaws clamped down on the man's arm, a scream ripping through the air as the pistol clattered to the ground. Clara rolled to the side, bringing her rifle up. A single shot rang out, and the man collapsed. Kessler was fast, too fast. Before she could aim, he was already on her, knocking the rifle from her hands. She hit the ground hard, pain exploding through her shoulder. Kessler loomed over her, his own pistol now inches from her face. "You're out of options," he said, breathing hard. Rex snarled, but a second man, one Clara hadn't seen, grabbed him from behind, forcing him to the ground with a cruel yank of a leash. The shepherd yelped in pain, struggling against the hold. Clara's vision blurred. Number not Rex. Kessler pressed the cold barrel of his gun against her forehead. "Last chance." She clenched her teeth. Her right hand was inches from the hunting knife strapped to her boot. Her mind raced. The file was still hidden, buried deep within a secure location. If she died here, it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't find it. But Rex, she wouldn't let them take him. Slowly, she raised her hands in surrender. "All right," she breathed. "You win." Kessler smirked, but Clara's fingers closed around the knife's handle. Kessler's smirk lasted a fraction of a second, just long enough for Clara to strike. With a sudden twist, she yanked the knife from her boot and slashed upward, the blade catching Kessler's forearm. He hissed in pain, his pistol jerking to the side as a shot rang out, embedding itself into the wooden floor inches from Clara's head. Before he could recover, she drove her knee into his stomach, sending him stumbling backward. Rex let out a vicious snarl. The second man, still gripping Rex's leash, tried to haul the dog back, but Rex lunged, teeth sinking into the man's forearm. A scream tore through the cabin as the leash snapped, freeing Rex completely. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her rifle from the floor, rolled onto her knees, and fired. The bullet whizzed past Kessler, forcing him to duck as he scrambled toward the door. His injured partner was already fleeing into the snow, clutching his bleeding arm. Kessler's cold blue eyes locked onto Clara's one last time before he turned and disappeared into the blizzard. Silence fell. Clara breathed hard, her hands trembling as she clutched her rifle. Smoke from the burning wreckage outside curled into the night sky, flickering through the broken window. Rex padded toward her, his fur bristling, but his eyes full of concern. She ran a hand over his head, steadying herself. "We have to move," she whispered. She knew. Kessler. He wouldn't stop. He'd regroup, bring more men. Next time, he wouldn't offer her a choice. Clara knelt by the fireplace, reaching behind a loose brick. Her fingers found the cold edge of a small metal drive. The file. The proof of everything. With a deep breath, she stuffed it into her jacket. Then, slinging her rifle over her shoulder, she whispered, "Come on, boy. We're not done yet." Rex barked once, and together they vanished into the snow-covered wilderness. The cold bit at Clara's skin as she and Rex moved through the dense forest, their tracks quickly disappearing under fresh snowfall. The wind howled through the trees, muffling their footsteps. She clutched the metal drive in her pocket. It held everything: names, locations, dates, proof of the conspiracy. But without a secure way to expose it, it was useless. She needed help. Clara's mind raced. There was only one person she could trust: Elias Grant, a former intelligence officer who had vanished years ago after refusing to play by the agency's rules. If anyone could help her disappear and expose the truth, it was him. But reaching Elias wouldn't be easy. Kessler would expect her to run, to hide. He would have men searching every road, every town. The only way to stay ahead was to move fast, and that meant reaching the old highway before sunrise. Rex suddenly froze. His ears perked up, nose twitching. Clara's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. She raised her rifle, scanning the trees. The wind carried distant sounds, crunching footsteps, faint voices. They weren't alone. A red laser dot flickered against the snow-covered bark ahead of her. Snipers. Her pulse surged. Kessler's men were already here. A voice rang out through the trees. "Clara James, drop your weapon!" Clara cursed under her breath. They had cut off her escape. "Think fast." She turned to Rex and whispered a single command. "Go!" Without hesitation, Rex bolted into the trees, his golden fur vanishing into the darkness. One of the snipers shouted, "The dog's running!" A gunshot rang out. Clara's blood ran cold. But then, chaos. A guttural scream echoed through the trees. Another gunshot, then silence. Clara used the distraction. She spun, firing 2 quick shots, taking down the nearest soldier before sprinting in the opposite direction. She darted between trees, her breath ragged, snow crunching beneath her boots. A voice crackled over a radio nearby. "She's heading for the ridge. Cut her off!" Clara pushed harder, lungs burning. She had to reach the river ahead. If she could cross it, she could lose them. A shadow moved to her left, one of Kessler's men. Too late. He lunged, tackling her to the ground. Her rifle was knocked loose, skidding across the ice. She struggled, kicking and thrashing as the man tried to pin her down. Then, another shadow. Rex. The shepherd barreled into the man, his powerful jaws locking onto the attacker's arm. The soldier screamed, flailing as Rex dragged him away. Clara gasped, grabbing a nearby rock. One hard strike. The man slumped, unconscious. She scrambled to her feet, Rex panting beside her, his breath fogging in the cold. They had seconds. She grabbed her rifle and sprinted. Ahead, the river came into view. Ice-covered, treacherous, but her only chance. She turned back just as more flashlights cut through the trees. Kessler's men were closing in. Clara took a deep breath. Then, without hesitation, she and Rex ran onto the ice. The cracking beneath her feet was instant. The ice wasn't thick enough to hold them. Kessler's men reached the edge of the riverbank. One shouted, "She's on the ice, don't shoot!" A tense silence. Then, the ice gave way. Clara felt the ground disappear beneath her. The freezing water swallowed her whole. Darkness. The shock of the freezing water was instant, a brutal grip that stole the air from Clara's lungs. The current dragged her under, twisting her body as ice-cold darkness swallowed her whole. Her rifle was gone, sinking fast. Her limbs screamed in protest, every nerve burning as she fought to swim upward. But the river was pulling her down. Above, muffled voices, flashlights scanning the broken ice. Kessler's men were watching. Then, a bark, muffled. distant. Rex. Through the icy blur, Clara saw a shape pacing along the ice, his paws scraping desperately at the edge. She had to reach him. With every ounce of strength left in her, she kicked hard, pushing toward the surface. Her fingers broke through first, grabbing at jagged ice. A hand shot out, gripping her wrist. She gasped as her head broke the surface, coughing and choking on frigid air. Not Rex. A man was crouched at the edge of the riverbank, holding her up with one hand while gripping a pistol in the other. Rugged face, sharp blue eyes, a thick gray jacket dusted with snow. Elias Grant. "Thought you'd be harder to find," he muttered, hauling her up with inhuman strength. Clara collapsed, onto the ice, shivering violently. Rex immediately pressed against her, his warmth keeping her from going into shock. Gunfire erupted behind them. Kessler's men. Elias turned, firing precisely. 2 shots, 2 men down. Then he grabbed Clara's arm, yanking her to her feet. "No time for hellos," he said. "We need to move." Through the trees, headlights flared to life. A black SUV rumbled to a stop, its back door swinging open. Elias smirked. "Hope you still like fast getaways." Clara didn't hesitate. With Rex at her side, she bolted toward the vehicle. Elias fired 3 more rounds before diving into the driver's seat. As soon as Clara and Rex were inside, the tires screeched against the ice. The SUV shot forward. Behind them, Kessler's men opened fire, bullets pinging off the armored body of the vehicle. The road twisted through the mountains, treacherous and narrow. But Elias drove like a man who'd done this 100 times before. Clara shivered, her breath still coming in ragged gasps. Elias glanced at her. "Still alive?" She nodded, too cold to speak. His smirk faded. "You got the file?" Clara reached into her pocket, fingers brushing the small metal drive. She held it up. Elias exhaled in relief. "Then it's over." But Clara knew better. Kessler wasn't the type to give up. She looked out the window as the dark forest blurred past, her grip tightening on the file. It wasn't over. Not yet. 3 weeks later, the sun broke gently over the hills of Westbrook, a sleepy town nestled in pine-covered valleys where time seemed to slow. The world no longer felt like it was on fire. Clara stood on a wooden porch, mug in hand, eyes scanning the distant horizon. The wind rustled through the trees, not with threat, but with peace. Rex lay nearby in the sun, his fur finally clean, his muscles healing. He lifted his head at the sound of her footsteps and let out a soft, contented bark. The battle was over, but it hadn't ended quietly. After Elias drove them into the mountains, they had gone completely off-grid. Over 2 days, Clara and Elias transmitted the encrypted file to trusted journalists and whistleblower networks. Within hours, the story had erupted across major media outlets. Black Ops cover-up exposed, secret kill teams operating inside U.S. borders. Project Shadowgate revealed. Survivor speaks out after government manhunt. There were denials at first, then panic, then resignations, and eventually an arrest. Kessler had gone into hiding, but not for long. Elias had anticipated his escape and leaked a false location that drew him out. Days later, Kessler was caught crossing into Mexico under a false identity. He never resisted. He knew the war was over. Clara watched the birds dance across the early morning sky. She had spent years digging into secrets, always one step away from the edge. She never expected to survive it, but somehow, with Rex at her side, she had. Elias appeared behind her, holding a folded newspaper. "You're on the front page again," he said with a dry chuckle. Clara rolled her eyes. "I told them I didn't want attention." He handed it to her anyway. A photo of her and Rex walking out of a federal building, heads held high, truth finally on their side. Below the headline were 2 words, "The Last Stand." She exhaled. This time she wasn't running. This time she had won. Later that day, Clara clipped Rex's leash and headed down the gravel path into the forest trail. Not to run, but just to walk. To live. As the trees swallowed them in dappled sunlight, Rex trotted ahead, tail wagging. Clara smiled, her fingers brushing the scar on her arm, a reminder of what it took to get here. She looked forward, where the road stretched quiet and endless, and said softly, "Come on, boy. Let's go home."